But anyway, so here's where we stand with the course at this time. So a little bit about X-Culture first, and then about exam one. So X-Culture, by now, it looks like pretty much all of you have passed the readiness test and have been placed on teams. It's been now it's now week 3, I believe, of the X-Culture project. So by now, all you had to do is to reach out to your team members, make sure that everybody's emails are working, that you can communicate, and that basically, get to know each other. And then the only sort of a task so far has been selecting the client company. So last Sunday, the survey asked you if you have decided on the client company, and also asked you or prompted you to develop a team contract or a team charter. Although that one is not graded, it's more we prompting you or encouraging you to discuss who is doing what, workload distribution, schedule, those kinds of things. And so our research shows that teams that go through that exercise perform much better. Again, we will not be evaluating them for grade, but the more you put there, the more discussions you have, the better off you will be down the road. And so obviously I will take a look at your charters, team charters, just out of curiosity. So by now you should have selected the teams and the client companies. As always, some are a little bit more popular than others. In fact, we have a few client companies that are very popular compared to others. And so what I will be doing is, one, as I said, you are allowed to change your client company anytime. So if you chose one and then at some point you decide to work on a different one, either because you think you can help that other one more, or because you, I don't know, had questions and the CEO did not respond to you right away, or some other reasons, you can make those changes anytime. But what I will also do is I will probably contact the students that chose the most popular companies and sort of remind them that they can switch, and it would be beneficial for them to switch to less popular companies. And again, you can choose whichever one you like. You don't have to follow my advice. There are 2 reasons I would like to have a more balanced sort of distribution of teams per company. One is for you. So when we select the winners, usually we select the best team for each company. So we have a total of, I believe, 13 companies this semester. And that means that there will be 13 best teams. Usually sometimes we have 2 or even 3 in a given company category. And again, the reason for that would be that all 3 got perfect reviews, equal number of votes from the selection award committee. And it's just impossible to decide which one is the one single best. So sometimes it would be not 1, but 2 winning companies, or even sometimes 3 even teams, winning teams per company. And so this way, if you choose a company that is less popular, your chances of winning are sort of a little bit higher. So if, let's say, there is a very popular company that has, let's say, 300 teams working on that challenge, obviously you have more competition than when you choose one that has only 15 teams working on the challenge. For me, the interest is also, I would like the number of teams to be balanced by the number of companies, so that none of the clients is upset that nobody's working on their challenge, but also 2, that they can handle the questions and the requests for more information from you. We've had situations in the past where a company would be so popular that they become literally overwhelmed with questions from students. And so it becomes a little bit difficult for them to handle and to devote enough attention to each team. And so usually you sort of are treated better if you select lesser popular companies, just because they will have more time for you by the virtue of not having so many teams to deal with. So, so far so good. So it seems like overall we are more or less balanced. I will be sending the next weekly survey tomorrow, every Wednesday as usual. And so this time I will make sure to include also the distribution of teams or companies, teams by company. So this way you will also see which ones are more popular and which ones are less popular. But so far it's okay. So it seems like most of the companies have at least a few teams working on the challenge, and none has cannibalized, too many. Again, we had in the past situations where there would be one company that gets like 60% of all teams. And so not only it's like 600 teams that are working on that challenge, which is hard to manage, but also not many teams are left for the rest. So, but all good there. Now, peer evaluations, we haven't started doing that quite yet, but soon, basically starting this survey, you will be asked to evaluate each other's performance. So not only how well you know each other, but actually peer evaluations, a 5-point scale. And as you know, the rules are that if your peer evaluations are below 2.0 overall average across all categories and across all team members. So if they are too low, you will get a warning the first time. And then usually we have out of, let's say, 4,000 students in the late track, there would be about maybe 40 people in a given week who are not performing well enough to keep their teams happy and who get peer evaluations below 2.0. Of those, so once we send the warning and once we say that, hey, I looked at your peer evaluations, you got, I don't know, 1.5 on average. It looks like you're not communicating with your team. It looks like your team is not happy with you. Usually about 20 of them respond right away saying, oh, I was busy this week. I had some emergency, or maybe I was sick, but don't worry, I'll be back on track. I'll reconnect with my team, all is good. Then there would be another 20 who do not reply to that message, which is also okay. But then by the next week, usually about 35 are back on track and peer evaluations are higher. And so we are happy, everybody's happy. But there would be probably about 5 in a given week, maybe 7 in some weeks, that week 2 and the peer evaluations are still low. And what we do in those cases, we place them on single person teams. So we basically exclude them from the team, but we put them on individual, essentially one person team, and tell them that, sorry, your team kicked you out. You now have to complete the project individually. Same task, same deadlines, you're just working on your own. But please do try to go back to your team, maybe explain what was going on. Again, maybe you were busy, maybe you had to travel, maybe you got sick, maybe something else went wrong, maybe this whole coronavirus, created too much stress and you were not able to focus on the project. So explain your situation to the team and see if you can make it up with them and make it work again. And usually most people succeed and, they come to the team and say, hey guys, I'm sorry, I had a slow start. I had something to take care of, but I'm now back. I will be able to devote all the time to the project. So can we please continue working together? And so many of those people will still be able to be back on teams. The team say, sure, we need more people, so no problem, yeah, let's work together. And so in that case, everybody's happy. I'm happy because the students are on teams. The students are happy because they don't have to do it all alone. And the team is happy because they have a good team member. There will be still a few people who will drop out altogether and never return, but it almost looks like they just simply drop the course. Like it's not that they are in the course, just don't care about X culture. In some cases, students just simply drop the course or something else goes on and they don't participate at all. And we never hear from them, but I suppose, out of 4,000, it's inevitable that something like that happens to some students, I guess, it is what it is. So from what I see so far, you all are doing well. So those of you who are on teams are doing well. Let me take a quick look here on your latest performance results. They were prepared this morning. And so I'll just take a quick look. Or rather, let's do this. You don't want to waste your time watching me looking at the records. If you have any questions about X culture, or if anything is not going well for you, or if you had difficulties establishing contact with your team members, or if you simply have questions, you can ask them now, or you can send me an email, or you have my contacts in the syllabus, you have my WhatsApp, you have my Skype, my telephone number. So feel free to contact me and talk to me. But the last cycle of data that I reviewed, it seems like everybody is doing pretty well. Everybody seems to be happy, confident. Nobody is, 100% confident that everything's going fine. Nobody is, like 100 on everything. But 80s, 90s, so it seems like we are doing fine. So there is some anxiety, some uncertainty, but that's exactly how it should be. So that's precisely what we want. So I don't know if anyone has X culture related questions now, you can put them in the Q&A window, and I will answer them, or you can raise your hand, and I will add you to the panel here, and we'll talk with you. Muhammad, how about you? So I have here Salina and Muhammad. Have you guys been able to connect with your teams since I have you here?
Yeah, from my side, everything's perfect. I really like my teammates so far. We've done really good charter, and we submitted it on Sunday, and we've chosen the company drones. So maybe the only question might
Which one? The dart drones?
Dart drones, exactly, yeah. And I just wanted to ask you to update us about what percentage of teams have chosen that, just to see our.
I will be sending, in fact, if you give me 1 second, I have those data already. I just didn't create the table yet. So just give me 1 sec, I'll give you those numbers. But tell me a little bit more about your team. So have you decided how you're going to communicate with your team?
Yes, we're actually using the same application we're using now, Zoom.
Zoom, okay. But so the free version, right? So there is a version that you can get for free. I think you have a limit of 10 people, but you don't need more because your team is relatively small, right? So, okay, so let me share the screen and show you how many we have for each company. So let me share here. And so can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is the number of students. Let me just very quickly do some manipulations here so that we have a better presentation of the data. So I'll switch it to, and we don't need this stuff here. And instead of alphabetical, we will do, oh, actually, you know what? There is one more thing that I needed to do. Let's do it as not number of students who did it, but as a percentage of total. Grand total. So this way we will see the percentages instead of just totals. So delete. We don't need this anymore, and I will remove some code here, and I don't think we need this anymore. And just to keep it more readable, I'll do it times 100 so that it's a little bit. Oops. This times 100, so it will be a little bit more useful and readable for us. And everybody chose the organization. We don't need this either. And I'll do one more thing. I will sort it from the most popular to the least popular so that it's easier for us to see. And so not bad at all. So we have dart drones 15%. So we have, let's do like this. So dart drones 15%, one more day, 11%, good earth oils, 11%, get out events. So pretty much all of the companies or most of the companies are around 10 plus or minus a few percent. The least popular are the last minute added ICCM, Matchplat. This one's a little bit, actually it's a very interesting company. I'm surprised that few people chose them, but it's very interesting, you know. So it seems like the ones that had a last minute addition, so Soprano, again, this one's an interesting company. They make a physical product, unlike many other ones that are more service related. But yeah, so it seems actually pretty balanced. So I'll probably contact students from the top 1 or 2 companies asking if they want to switch to the less popular just in case. But overall, it seems to be nothing super unusual and nothing super big. As I said, we had situations in the past where we had half of the teams choosing the same company, and that was somewhat a problem both for the company, but also for the students. But at this time, it's not too bad. So Mohammed, your company is the most popular, but 15% is going to be what, about 100 teams or so total. So it's definitely many more than for ICCM or Matchplat, but it's not a huge number. It's a pretty decent, nice distribution. So see if you decided to switch at some point, but I think it's actually not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
The company must be very happy.
They actually were also very popular in the early track. But yeah, I guess, you know, at the very least, it means that people believe in what they do. And I guess that's nice. One More Day is a student related company. So I guess, you know, you get to use their app for free and maybe even benefit from them. But yeah, everything seems to be more or less fine. I'm happy that Get Out events is not, because they were the most popular in the early track and had a little too many teams. So I guess now they're more or less in the middle or kind of upper third, so that's fine. But yeah, nothing unusual, so we are good there. How about you, Ida, Solin, how things are going for you with your X-Culture teams? Can you, I think you need to unmute your microphones. Is everything fine? Were you able to connect with your teams? Are you communicating with them?
Yes, we are mostly communicating via messages, but now we had our first Skype meeting.
Oh, you had you actually had a live meeting with video.
Yeah.
Ah, that's wonderful. We did research, and actually it shows that it makes a huge difference if you can have a live meeting. Again, it seems like we did some interviews after that study, and so it seems like when you have a meeting like what we have now, all of a sudden Muhammad is no longer for me like two words on the screen. Well, he is again now because he switched off his camera, but I know, you know, what he looks like, and he looks like a real person to me. And so all of a sudden I treat him with a little bit more respect. I sort of cannot just not show up because, oh, he's back online here. So I cannot just simply ignore his messages because, you know, we are friends, sort of. I mean, I know it's a person. Whereas if people didn't have a video message, they just see basically, you know, John Smith. Who is John Smith? You know, so you don't have that same sense of emotional attachment and sort of reciprocal obligation. And so it shows that when you have a live meeting, the whole dynamics changes. And then we had a few semesters when we tried to make it mandatory, but then again, it's so difficult for teams to organize those meetings, not only because you're all in different time zones, but also in some countries, students may not have an easy access to the internet. Sometimes the quality of the connection is poor, all kinds of reasons. Some work, some study, school. And so we decided not to do it because when we made it mandatory, there was literally like hundreds of emails every week from teams that say, oh, somebody's not available, or somebody promised that he will be there or she will be there, but didn't show up. It just was too difficult to manage logistically. But it's very good that you guys had that. It's definitely something that will help your team down the road. Okay.
And there was last time the question that do we want that you add some more person to our team? So if you're gonna add, when is it?
That's a good question. So the way we do it is that usually we would have about 20, 30 students this week. There will be probably another 15 next week, and maybe 10 more a week after. And at that point, I don't think we will have any more people to add to teams, because by that time, everybody will be on teams. And when we ask you guys, do you need more team members? For most of the teams, it's not a unanimous vote. So we will have like 2, 3, maybe 4 teams where everybody says, yes, we need more team members. And then there will be a few teams that, you know, like half of the team says we need more people, and others say we don't. And then there will be many teams where, you know, like one person says we would like more people, and everybody says we're fine as we are. And so that creates it a little bit difficult for us to sort of decide who should get more team members. So we kind of look at the whole data and distribution, and usually we sort of go in this order. So there is a team with only 4 or 5 people that everybody says we need more people. That would be our top priority, and those 15, 20 people would first go to those teams. If anybody is left, we then look maybe at teams where everybody but one person said we need more people. And again, if there are different sized teams, the smaller ones usually get a priority. Sometimes also some teams may have, let's say, 2 or even 3 American students, and then only like 2 from other countries. Again, if we have a non-American student available, maybe we'll add 1 to that team because we want to make them more diverse. And so what that means is that if everybody on your team said we need more team people, usually you have a pretty good chance of getting someone new, although again, not guaranteed. If your team is already has like 6 people or even 7 people, as some teams, probably we will not, add more. But if it looks like you need more people, especially if it looks like somebody's not performing, and then somebody says, I'm confused, I don't know what to do, so we will add a person. So therefore, at this time, I'd say if you need more people, that's what you indicated, chances are that you will probably get someone, but the chance is like 50%. So I cannot guarantee that. And if you get more people, it will be either this week or next week. Usually the week after, it's too late to add more people, and we usually don't have anyone else available. So therefore, it's almost best to assume that at this time your team is your team. Nobody else will be added to the team, unless again somebody drops out and we try to replace that person, or something else goes wrong. And so if we can, we will try to add more people, but otherwise we sort of assume, sort of try to serve those that really, really need an additional person. And so our goal is that each team has 5 or 6 people. And then the distribution of countries is such this time that we will have probably 2 American students on every team. And then there will be 3 from other countries, or 2 or 3 or 4 from other countries. And again, the reason for that is that we have so many universities from the United States participating that even though I do reject a lot of applications from those schools, we still have quite a few available. And so we have to put 2 American students on every team at least, you know, at some point. So, yeah. All right. So I'm looking at the records. It actually seems like we have a couple of students from our class here from Lithuania who are not on teams yet. So if you are watching this, here is what you need to do. Several times over the last few weeks, you should have received an email from admin@xculture.org. And the first email actually went out must have been like a month ago, like literally at the beginning of the course. And then the system sends you a reminder probably at least once a week and maybe even every 3-4 days over the last couple of weeks. Now, if you have not received that email, there are 2 possible reasons for that. One, some of you have your Hotmail Gmail accounts and some of you have your Lithuanian University of Vilnius University email accounts. I did look at which ones you prefer and I tried to send messages to those to the emails that you indicated as your preferred email, but there is still a slight chance that maybe something somewhere got messed up and maybe somehow the message is going not to your preferred email. So please check both accounts if you have both accounts. So there is a good chance that maybe it's going just to the other account. Second, and that's very important, sometimes my messages get into your spam folder. And the reason for that is that our system sends out about 4,000 of those messages every wave. And so, so what happens is some servers think that we are spammers. So they see that a lot of messages, like literally thousands of them, go from the same account with the same subject line, with the same more or less text. And some of them think, oh, maybe it's some spammer, sending some junk mail. And so what happens is sometimes my messages can get in your spam folder. Again, if that happens, look into the spam folder and see if you can find them there. And then obviously, sometimes students simply accidentally delete those messages. They don't recognize them and delete them, or something else like just didn't see them. But anyway, try to locate those messages. I guarantee you there are at least 4 of them, maybe even 5 by now, wherever they are, spam folder, deleted folder, inbox. So we definitely send them to you multiple times. And so once you find that message, in that message, you will have 2 important links. One will be to your Xculture resource page, as we call it. Let me show you what it looks like. So it will be, oops, where's my? So it will be the xculture.org and then 2021B, which is your track. So you are in the year 2020, 1 for spring, B for the late track. The password would be in that email, which is 2021 without the dash. And so here you will have all training materials. And basically all the materials that you need to review is a short video and then a PDF file, a little bit longer that you need to read. And then if you want, there are some optional additional resources that you can review. And yep, so once you review these materials, click on the second link. And the second link is your readiness test link. So once you click on that link, let me actually see if I can quickly find one, because I'm one of the students on the list for the test purposes. And so the system keeps sending me the reminders as well, thinking that I'm a student. Yeah, welcome to Xculture. Let me see if I can find quickly winner certificate. I think it would be welcome to Xculture, and I'll show you what that looks like. And that's what it looks like, yeah. So the message will look something like this. You have your link to the resource page. And as you see, because as I said, I'm entered in the system as one of the students, it keeps sending me the reminders just like it's sending them to you. And so the first one went literally a month ago. So it was February 20th. And then every few days, it sends me another reminder. So it should be the same thing with you. And then you just click on the readiness test. So this time the deadline is as soon as possible. And you send that, click on the link and just answer some questions. And so it will probably take you, I don't know, like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes to complete the test, depending on how fast you read. And once you complete that test, we know that you're available, everything's fine, and we will place you on a team. The reason we don't place students on teams until they complete the test is, one, Sometimes we're not even sure if that student is still available in the course. Like with you, I sort of know that you are. But again, even with you, I had, I think, 2 students told me that they're no longer in the course. So I guess it's possible that some of those students not on Teams are the ones that I'm talking about. Then for some, the email may not be reaching them. So, and if we send you the, put you on the team, and that's the email we have, your team will not be able to contact you. So we want to make sure that that test is completed, both so we know you are available, you are working hard, as well as that you can speak English well enough to understand the questions in the test, that you're sort of, prepared enough to know the answers to those questions, because nobody wants to have team members who are not prepared. Like you wouldn't want to have anyone on your team who hasn't even been able to go online and complete the test. And so for that reason, we obviously wait until we complete the test, but once you do, we will place you on a team. And so going back to Ida's question that what are the chances that we'll get a new team member and when? Well, once we have those remaining students take the test, and I think we have a total of about 100 on the list who haven't taken the test yet. But again, I kind of suspect some of them probably just, dropped the course. Maybe like we even had situations where students were not able to pay for their university education, and because of that had to drop from the university. But without the university, they cannot participate in X-Culture, so we had dropouts like that. So we'll see. But yeah, it looks like we'll probably add another maybe 50, 60, 70 people over the next few weeks. And if you're one of those students, take the test as soon as possible. But yep, that's where we stand with X-Culture. So next week, you will have to look at all of the tasks, all of the questions in your challenge, and basically try to answer them individually. And so again, it will not be graded per se, but it's a required step in the process. And again, we did a lot of studies before we made that mandatory. But what we see often is that teams do the same mistake over and over again. So what teams do often is they look at the questions, and there would be, let's say, 8 questions or 9 questions. And they say, okay, there are, let's say, 6 people here. So why don't you do this question, you do this question, I'll do these 2 questions. And then at the end of the semester, we will simply copy and paste everything that we've done individually into one document and submit it as a report. And that is a very bad idea for 2 reasons. One, if you do it, if you don't communicate with your team, if everybody works on one single question, it is pretty much guaranteed, like I promised you, that there will be at least one, maybe several students on your team who will either not do their part at all, or will do it at very low quality. So maybe they will plagiarize some parts, maybe some answers will make no sense. And if you do not communicate with one another, if you just trust that everybody will do their share, like Ida, Solim, Mohammed, so I'm hoping that, as long as I do my part, they will do their parts. The last week of the project, when it's time to merge everything together, you all of a sudden realize, oh, it's actually not that good. John didn't do his work at all. And then maybe Christina plagiarized half of her, report section. And so all of a sudden you're not prepared, you didn't know that they didn't do a good job, and you don't have time to do anything about it. So obviously it's stress, it's problem, so it doesn't work. The second reason is that the biggest value or the biggest advantage a team has over an individual is that you can think, you can exchange ideas, you can talk, you can brainstorm together. And so it would be very foolish to divide the workload in the way where everybody works autonomously on one question. You want, at the very least, to exchange ideas about each of the questions and say, for example, Mohammed, you will be working on marketing, and I'm working, for example, on logistics, but I still have some ideas for marketing. Why don't you consider this? Why don't you consider that? Can you tell me what you're planning to do? Maybe I have some constructive remarks or criticism. And so we found that when we ask students to think about answers to each of the questions on their own, they already have something to say about each question. And so even if they are assigned to do something else, because I had to think about marketing, I had to think about HR, I had to think about pricing, I had to think about, for example, I don't know, market choice and market analysis. I will say, hey, Mohammed, you know what? I have some ideas here. I spent that first week thinking about those questions, and I know you got it. You probably will do a good job, but here is what I have to say. Why don't you take that into account? And so the goal of this step, the goal of this, milestone is that you familiarize yourself with the whole challenge so that you can contribute to the discussion when the time comes for you to talk about that with your team members. And so that's what you will do next week. And then the week after, you will do block 1 draft, block 2 draft, block 3 draft, week by week. And again, each of these weekly submissions, deliverables, we do not expect you to have the final version of the report that looks nice and clean. In most cases, it's just a collection of some notes and thoughts and links and, disorganized information. But it's okay. You have time as long as you have everything ready by the end of the project. That all that counts. But again, try to do as much as possible for these deadlines, deliverables, because in many cases, time flies faster than you think. And so while now it looks like we have all the time in the world, most of the teams have to do most of the work literally like last week or maybe 2. And so the more you do now, the more prepared you are for that one last final push. And yep, that's basically how it goes. All right, so we have some questions. So Karina, Aida, Celine, if you have any questions, unmute your microphones, go ahead. Karina, you wanted to say something? I see you raise your hand.
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hello. Thank you. So basically I have a question. There is this girl from our team. She's from France originally, but she went to study to Mexico City. But due to coronavirus, she has to come back to France. And she said that for her, the ex-culture is over. So basically we're staying 4 of us now. And would it be possible, to add one more person to our team?
Yes. It's a very, very good question, Karina. And again, we're still trying to decide what to do with situations like this. It never happened before. So you have a French student who was on a study abroad tour. Now she's going home. And because of that, she had to drop the courses that she was taking in Mexico. And so apparently she's not motivated enough to stay in the team. As long as it's not part of the course, why should I do it? Then we also have a group of Saudi Arabian students, 24 students there, where the schedule has been changed for them. So originally the semester had to go until the end of May, I believe. And now they said, let's finish everything in something like 2 weeks. And so the semester will be over basically by the end of March. And so while the semester is not canceled per se, they will be done with the semester like a month before ex-culture is over. And so the professor also said, so what do we do in this case? Because the students sort of will have no incentive to keep working with the teams. And so what we did with the Saudi Arabian students is we sent a question to all of them saying, we're asking if they would like to stay on the teams despite the fact that it's now basically not possible to make it part of the course. And to my delight, almost all of them said, yes, I don't care if it's part of the course or not. I already met my team. I have all the time in the world. I'm staying home anyway, so I would like to stay on my team. There were, I think, 5 or 6 of them who said, no, I would like to drop out, so it's not part of my course anymore, so I'm out. Now with the French student, it seems like she made her decision, so we cannot do much about it, but I expect that there will be probably more students like that, especially the ones who study abroad and now have to drop out. So what we'll do again, we will give them the choice. Even if your course drops out or even if something else goes wrong and you cannot continue in the project as part of your course credit, you are still welcome to stay in ex-culture, finish the course, finish the project, gain the experience, but also get the certificate, the recommendation letter in the end. And so we'll have to see what happens. Now, if she drops out, obviously we will mark that. And so there are 4 of you left. And yes, you will be a prime target for an additional team member. But again, as I said, I cannot guarantee that just because we don't have too many people on the wait list. So I believe this week we have something like 40 people or something like that that will be placed on teams basically today. And we will try to add 1 more to your team, but let's see how many teams need people and how many we have available. But I think it would be sort of, prudent and wise to operate under the assumption that your team is comprised of 4 people, which is, still a sizable team. So, and I'll on my end see what I can do. So we'll try to add more. One of the big challenges obviously also is that if someone like this student from France drops out, she may have told you that, but I'm not sure if she told us. And so again, I'll probably get the name so I know, but it's also possible that for some of those students, we may not even know for another week or 2. And so again, once we know, we will make it a priority to replace those dropouts. But in many cases, they don't really send us anything. So what I would say is if your teams have a situation like this, send an email to admin and say that, we're losing this student or that student, because otherwise we may not even, know that there is a situation. So Karina, what's the team number? If you tell me the team number, I'll find the name of the student.
Yes, sure. I can also write you an email.
Yeah, or send me an email, and better yet, send it not to me,
Yeah.
but send it to admin. So my assistant is handling those kinds of records, and so he will be placing new people on teams today. So I will, if you send it to me, I'll forward it to him, but just, it will be faster.
Okay.
It goes directly to admin.
It's just, yeah. We actually, without even knowing this, we talked to the girl and offered her to stay,
Yeah.
even though she has to leave the university. But she said that it's kind of a tough time for her and for her family, so she has to come back to France, and she doesn't want to stay. Yeah.
Totally understandable. And as I said, we do have some students who drop out because they are, I don't know, incompetent, lazy, whatever. But in the vast majority of the cases, it's something like this. Like it's circumstances, people have things going on in their lives, like even without the coronavirus. As I said, maybe some family issues or maybe some work-related, busy. And so in most cases, when people drop out, it's a legitimate good reason. And so this time we just expect more people dropping out because of the whole travel craze, coronavirus. Sometimes we have situations where it would be something in a particular country. Like, for example, last semester was really bad for us. We had Venezuela, Iran, Hong Kong, and France. So we had 4 countries that were going through some, massive protests. And so in Venezuela, for example, they literally had weeks, sometimes without electricity. And so the only way they were able to connect with their team is with the smartphones. So they would go find, I don't know how they charge them, solar batteries or something, or maybe some charging stations. And then they would use the cellular network to go online, but they wouldn't be able to connect with the team kind of the usual way. And then we had Hong Kong, obviously, where some of the services were shut down. So they had the electricity, but they just would not be able to use, all the services that they use for communication because the government was cracking down on them. And then Iran, obviously, same thing. And then France, it was not too bad, but there were a few waves of protests, as you remember, those yellow jackets. And so again, at some point, some people were just too busy or unavailable. And so this semester, obviously, it's even worse, but it's global business. I mean, it's always like that. Something like this happens every semester, just usually more localized, but it's part of the experience. It's exactly what we wanted to sort of convey to you. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the exam. So let me share the screen one more time. Again, if you haven't seen it, where's my screen share? Yeah. So when you go to the syllabus, first, what you should have done so far, and it seems like all of you are doing well. I think we have a few students who are a little behind the schedule, but overall, all of you pretty much do well. So we had, first week, meet each other and just watch the video introduction. And then you had one topic per week that you had to either preferably watch the video lecture, and you have the links right in the syllabus. And then if you have the textbook, and I think your library has a few copies, plus you can buy them online as well. You can read the chapter from this first one. The second one is free. You can download it, and I have the link further in the syllabus. So you can read if you prefer reading. You can watch the video lecture if you prefer watching. You have my slides that are designed to look more like class notes. So a lot of text there. So you can almost read them as not quite like a textbook, but they are deliberately not only pictures and bullet lists, but a little bit more information. And then each week there was a little homework assignment that you need to do. And as long as you do it, you get your participation points. There is one thing that I want to say about that. So I do read your question, your answers. And I'm usually pretty liberal when it comes to your homework evaluations. As long as you're sort of on the right track, as long as you show me that you have put some thought into the questions, I give you full credit. But, and sometimes again, students would say only a few words, and it becomes a little bit difficult to decide, is it good enough or not? Is it too little or not? But let's say, like for example, if the question is, I don't know, what is the different type of political ideologies? If students put, for example, democracy, totalitarianism, and nothing else, I'm like, should I give them full credit? Well, they didn't give me the pros and cons, but it seems like at least they read something. So let's give them full credit this time. But then some students started sort of cheating. Like I had 2 submissions last week where people just put some random jumbo mumbo, like literally random keys, like not even words. Like they just put a lot of text, but it's like completely random. And so, like when you visually look at that, it seems like they said something. But I'm starting to first I'm like, is that a different language? No, it just looks like they were just randomly clicking on the keys just to put something. Apparently, like last minute. And so obviously for that, you will get zeros. No excuse. So So, you know, I'm trying to be good to you, but don't push it too far. So, you know, try to do your best. And on homework assignments, as I said, I'm not trying to evaluate the quality of the answers in depth. As long as you show me that you've done the readings and you know the terminology, I'm happy. On the exams, it will be much stricter. But again, try to be reasonable there. And so you had several of those chapters. You had chapter 3, 4, 6, and 11 so far. And I downloaded 11 just now. Where's 11? 6. Oh, that's that, yeah. And then 11 here. And so I will be sending you the usual weekly review probably later today. You will see what you got. But again, so far at this time, as long as you provided reasonably good answers for your homework questions, you got full credit. And so the next big step will be the exam. And so the exam will, it looks like we also have chapter 13, one more that you will do, and then this week, and then the exam. So the exam will cover these 5 chapters, and it will open next week, and you will have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days to complete the test. You can do it anytime during that window, but you will have 90 minutes to complete the test once you click on it, once you start it. And so you have the exam study guide here, right here linked. So if you click on the link, you will see the list of topics that will be covered on the exam. So you have them all here. And again, if something, you know, if it looks familiar to you, like if you know exactly what the political systems are, maybe you're ready, you don't need to do anything. But if you're a little bit confused as to what the political systems are, or economic systems and pros and cons of different ones, that's where you probably want to go back to the book chapter and read it and see if you need a little bit more information there. But you have a list of topics basically covered for each of the chapters. Not sure what's here. So for each of the chapters, you have a list of topics that will be covered on the exam. And so that should guide your preparation. And yeah, and then for the exam, so as I said, Moodle is still acting up for me, and I don't know why that is the case. For some reason, when I go into the English version, it doesn't show me all of the options. And so I've been able to do some things when I switched to Lithuanian and then use Google Translate, but it's a little inconvenient and not a big fan. So we will continue using the direct links. So you have links to all of the materials in the syllabus. So you don't really need Moodle to download your slides or to download your video lectures. It's all in the syllabus. And then for the exam, what I'll do is I will send you a personal link on the first day, you know, once the exam opens, and you will each get an email with the link. All you do, just click on that link. It will take you to your personal exam sort of page, and you will do it there. And I will send you probably a couple more reminders. So I'll send you one right at the time when the exam opens, and then I'll probably send you a reminder like in the middle of that window, and then one right before the deadline, just in case you haven't done it yet, so that you can complete the test. And yep, so click on the link, do the test, and that's pretty much all we have to do. I will not go through the exact topics that we need to cover for the exam because, you know, first it takes at least an hour for each of the topics to cover it in depth. And I assume you have the video lectures, you have the readings, so you'll be fine. But again, if you have any specific questions about the exams, both about the structure of the exam, or if you've been watching the video lectures and there are some topics that you find yourself sort of confused about, now is a good time to ask. So one of the things I will say, and unfortunately that has always been the case and probably will always be the case, students, and again, in this case, not US students, I in my time was like that, and I'm still like that with my other deadlines. Most of us wait until the last minute before we start preparations. And so I kind of suspect that some of you have not watched all of the lectures yet, and you probably kind of wait until the last minute. Normally, it's not a problem, maybe even not such a bad idea, because if you review them right before the exam, the information is fresh in your mind. The problem is this. The video lectures for each of the topics is like, what, 1 hour, 15 minutes on average, probably between an hour, hour and a half. And so we have 5 lectures for the exam, or 5 topics. So if you haven't watched the video lectures and you want to watch them right before the exam, it will be basically 6, maybe even 7 hours of time. And it's not even that you cannot, you know, save those hours before the exam, and just your mind will probably go numb after the first 2 hours. I mean, it's just difficult to be focused for an extended period of time. So therefore, it's probably not a good idea to postpone it until the last minute, just because it's impossible to spend more than a few hours doing the same task, and you simply may not be able to prepare on time. So what I would do is I would download all those video lectures and I would watch them, whenever you have time. Maybe, just sit and watch, or maybe as you're cleaning your house, or maybe, I don't know, jogging or going to the gym or whatever people do now with this quarantine. Just watch them and sort of keep that in your mind. You'll probably be able to understand or comprehend most of the materials. It's nothing super difficult. And then right before the exam, what I would do is I would review everything one more time. And again, you can either go through the slides. Again, they are detailed enough that you can remember all of the things that are covered in the lectures and refresh it in your mind. And maybe even, I don't know, like put the speed, playback speed at 2. I know I speak fast as it is, and if you put it times 2, it will be even faster. But now that you're familiar with the material, I think you should be able to comprehend it at faster speed, and maybe, do another quick review right before the exam. And then importantly, go through the slides right before the exam, because you want to not only refresh the material in your head, but also remember what they look like, where things are. And because the exam is open books, open notes, you can use the slides, you can use the textbook during the exam. And so I would either print it or maybe keep it on your computer screen open, or maybe you would have 2 computers or maybe 2 screens open. And yes, if there is a question on the exam that you cannot answer, you just go back to the slides, you do a quick search, you know where things are because you worked with them before. And if you're not sure, you just find that corresponding slide and you read it again and you got your answer. And yeah, and then basically do it that way. I do not recommend that you do cheating. Unfortunately, there is no way for me to prevent that. I mean, in theory, it's possible, and I guess I probably shouldn't be giving you any ideas, but in theory, it's possible that you collect, gather up as a group, like let's say 6 people. And then one person does the test and everybody else is sort of watching and taking snapshots of each question. And then you spend a few hours looking for the answers, and then you sort of have the answer key. That would be unethical, that would be wrong. If I were to catch you doing that, at least at my university, obviously you will be definitely kicked out of the university. But realistically, I know there is no way I can police you and I can, catch every instance of cheating. So I just hope that you're mature enough and serious enough not to do that. One thing that I do so that it doesn't happen is that the questions, there is a large data bank of questions. So each of you will see, I believe, 40 questions total. But the data bank of questions is much larger. So it's about 150 questions in the data bank. And so the questions are selected randomly from that data bank, presented to you randomly. And for some questions, the answers within the question are also scrambled up. So that means that everybody sees a different version of the test. Many questions will still be the same, I guess, because it's still a limited number pool of questions. But you will see a set of different questions and they will appear in a different order. And for some questions, the correct answer in one version can be A and in another version can be B. So therefore, I wouldn't spend too much time trying to kind of cheat the system, because chances are it will take you more time to do it right than to simply just review the materials and get ready for the exam and just do it honestly. As I said, this material is not that difficult. It's a lot of stuff that you need to read. It's a lot of material to process, but it's not statistics. It's not accounting. It's not something that is just difficult to understand. I mean, this is common sense stuff. As long as you read it, or as long as you listen to, to the video lecture, there is no way you will not understand, what the pros and cons of, free market economy versus planned economy is, or things like that. So therefore, it almost seems like it would be cheaper and more reliable to do it honestly, rather than try to game the system with, a method that I just described, because it can confuse you. You probably will not see all the questions anyway. And the worst part is that, you can remember that the answer to this question was B, but in your version, it may be C. So you can even make mistakes that way. So yeah, I trust you will do well. And yeah, normally the average for the exam is somewhere around 75% correct answers. So that's roughly what we want. And yeah, we'll go with that. The only other thing that I do, sometimes some questions may be what I call bad questions. So if half of the class cannot answer a particular question, I usually assume that there is something wrong with the question itself, or I failed as a teacher, I didn't teach you well enough. So if more than half of you cannot answer that question, I assume it's my fault, not your fault. As I said, either I did not prepare you enough, or maybe the wording of the question is confusing, or the question itself is confusing. And so in cases like that, what I do is usually I give you like a compensatory bonus. So if there is a bad question, you get basically full credit for that question, even if you got it wrong. Usually we don't have those questions, but sometimes there may be one. And I even had a few situations where there were 2 questions that were bad. And in that case, I sort of do something about it so you're not unduly penalized for my failure. So I hope it will not happen this time, but if it will, you kind of have that insurance policy in place. Yep, that's pretty much all I had to say for today. Any questions, any comments, any observations?
Professor, if I may, I just have a couple of questions regarding the exams. So, first of all, it's going to be multiple choice, 100%, all the questions.
Yeah, all multiple choice.
Okay, and if I remember correctly from the first assignment, after we submit our answers in the text form, I mean the homework basically, on the very first one, the very first link, there was a couple of questions in the form of multiple choice. After the survey, exactly. However, that did happen only once. So did I miss it in the other links, or
no? So I thought about that. So that's a good question. So I'm still trying to decide what to do with that. So when you're watching the video lectures, as you know, every 15 minutes or so, or 10 minutes, there would be a question that is either going to appear on the exam or looks very similar to the questions that will appear on the exam. And so my primary interest with the homework is those green questions. I want to make sure that you sort of show me that you have done your readings, that you know what's going on. But I also thought I might want to add those green questions, those sample questions from the exam, also to make sure that you know the answers. And I'm still not sure what the best way to do it, because on the one hand, it would be good to add them to the homework assignments to make sure that you know the answers, sort of to train you before the test. On the other hand, the reason I add those questions in the video lectures is so that you have an incentive to watch the video lectures. Like if you watch them, you get a bonus of previewing 3, 4, 5 questions from the real exam. In fact, if you watch all video lectures, you will probably have seen like half of the test already. And so if I include them in the homework assignment as well, it looks like, you kind of get them for free without the need to watch the video lectures, which is again bad for you, and I don't want to promote that. And I think what I started doing is I started adding them to some homework assignments. I'm like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. And so that's why sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. But no, you're not missing anything. So I think I just added them in a couple of cases and then didn't add them in other cases. So by default, they probably should not be there. I don't think I will be adding them for the remaining homework assignments. But yes, those are the questions that are very likely to appear on the exam. Usually they will not be exactly in the same format, so the answers may be slightly differently worded, but they're very, very similar to what you see on the exam. And so this way, if you try to answer those questions during the lectures, you kind of have a good idea what the exam looks like. And again, even though the questions themselves may be somewhat different, and some will be completely different, but you know the format, you know the style, you know what they look like. So, yeah.
Thank you, Professor. That was actually a very subtle way from my side of asking whether those questions inside the videos are coming up in the exam or not. So you answered that question.
So as I said, I try to have them not precisely in that same exact wording, but there will be questions that will look almost identical. As I said, maybe the answer options will be scrambled up. Maybe some of the, statements will be slightly differently worded, but yes, that's the whole idea. And yes, as I said, as long as you watch all of the video lectures, you will kind of have seen about half of the exam questions in almost the same version that they will be on the exam. So that's exactly the point. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And last,
yeah, go ahead.
Last question, Professor. In the last assignment, there wasn't any information inside the video about the last question, which is strikes in China are becoming common at Honda, blah, blah, blah. How do increasing wages in China affect the US/the EU?
That's a good point. And yes, there may be some that we sort of don't address directly per se, but we talk about, supply chain, we talk about demand, supply, and how that affects prices and, and ability to produce. So some of those questions may be more kind of like, testing your logic. So maybe the direct answer was not provided. And so let's take that question, for example. Let's say China starts, like striking, like, for example, what was happening in Hong Kong, or there were some strikes because of the rising cost of living and the wages are not keeping up. Or now, obviously, manufacturers are shut down because of the coronavirus. What would be your opinion here, Mohammed? So what effect would that have on, for example, let's say Lithuania? and let me sort of, give you some context. Again, I'm not sure how concerned people are about China in Lithuania, but I think it's probably not that different than anywhere else in the world. But in the United States, in Canada, in Germany, many people see China both as a threat, but also as sort of an annoyance. So they believe that, products made in China are basically products not made here, and jobs created in China are jobs stolen from the United States or Canada. We had those factories and we were the ones who made the stuff, and now China is making it. And so many people believe that it's bad. And so some people even say, oh, if something happened to China, we would benefit because all those jobs would come back. And so imagine that some factory of the coronavirus comes along, and so all the factories in China get closed. And so what effect would that have on Lithuania? Can you try to sort of plan here? So what would happen to, for example, availability of products on the store shelves? Would it go up or down? That's the question.
Down.
Obviously, there will be fewer. If the supply of products goes down, what would happen to prices?
Go up, of course.
Yeah, prices will become, higher. So if prices are higher for some products, what would happen to your purchasing ability? So if now you have to pay, let's say, twice as much for your computer mouse, for your, shirt, whatever else we buy from China, what will that do to your ability to buy other products, maybe Lithuanian-made products? Will you be able to buy more or fewer of them?
Fewer consumption.
Probably fewer. So if you can buy fewer products from, factories that are in Lithuania, what will that do to employment rate in Lithuania? Again, probably that will damage that as well. And so sort of the correct answer would be that people who work in factories that make the products that used to be made in China and now they're not made in China anymore, they will benefit. Let's say, for example, shoes or electronics. I mean, if there are any factories in Lithuania that make those products, obviously people who work for those factories will benefit, because all of a sudden the demand for their products will go up and they will be able to sell more of them, make higher profits, and probably there will be, wage increases and stuff like that. But pretty much everybody else will lose because, the consumers will have to pay more, and that's a problem because we have to, we don't like paying more for products. Then employees at other factories will be losing because all of a sudden now that we have to pay more for some products, we have less money left to buy other products. And so there will be also some layoffs probably, or some profitability decreases in other sectors. So also not good. Then maybe manufacturers, let's say, for example, of, cars or whatever else that use components from China, they will have a problem because the components become more expensive, the supply chain is disrupted. So for them, that's a problem because now they have a harder time building the product, and then it becomes more expensive to build, and so they will have a hard time selling it. And so that would be sort of the type of logic that we would like to follow here. So if something happens to China, obviously some people will celebrate because all of a sudden they now have, gotten rid of the competitor. But everybody else sort of will suffer because, we've kind of gotten used to those cheaper products, good quality products now too. And so obviously all of a sudden now we don't have that option. And so that means that at the very least, the prices will go up, and for everybody that would be potentially negative. So some people will definitely win, and that's an important thing, but many will lose. And so that's also important. So that would be the type of logic that we have to follow.
Thank you, Professor.
All right.
That's it.
Okay, I'm not sure if there are any other questions. Yeah, Ida, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a question about the evaluation of the course. Mm-hmm. Is it like we have to get 70 points out of 100 to pass the course?
You know what, that's a very good question, and I never quite fully understood how it works at your school. So what I do is, let me show you here if you see my screen. I have this, sorry, where's the syllabus? I have this chart here where I show how the grades will be transformed. So to stay sort of universally, transferable, I evaluate everything on a 100-point scale. But then your school wants me to submit the grades in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10%, on a 10-point scale format. And so what we'll do is that, let's say you get 90 on average on each exam, and you've done all homework assignments, and you got, let's say 100 for scholarship.
Professor, if I might interrupt you for a second.
Yes. I'm showing this on screen.
The very first time we met all together on that online session at school, I was going to comment on that, but I wasn't sure if you were going to hear me in the crowd. Just as a comment to this, technically, officially, in our business school and the university itself as a whole, Vilnius University, 5 out of 10 is the passing grade.
Okay.
So that would mean getting 1 to 4. That would mean that the student failed, and 5. Do you see what I'm going?
Yeah, and that should be okay. I mean, I cannot expect that many of you will get less than 70, and here is why. But yeah, I see. Okay, I'm glad that you told me that. So maybe we'll have to adjust that scale, because if you get 70, you basically fail the course. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, and all the other professors basically keep it very directly proportional. So for example, a 5 is 50%, that's when you pass, 6 is 60%, 7 is 70. And it depends on the professors, they play with it sometimes. So for some professors make a 10 between 90 and 100%. Some of them do it.
Basically divide it by 10, and that's how you do it. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad that you told me that. Let's change that right away. So you said that most of the professors literally just converted, percentage, like directly proportional, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, somehow I missed that part, and you're right. I mean, even though I cannot imagine that anyone will get less than 70, and the reason for that is because on the exams, usually the average will be 75 plus or minus, and most people will be between 70 and 80, 85 maybe. The X culture is basically, as long as you do it and as long as your team is happy with you, you get full credit. And then the homework assignments, as you see so far, again, as long as you do it, you usually get full credit. So I expect that most of you will be above 70, so I do not expect there will be any problems with that. But then again, maybe there will be some challenges, so let's do it like this then. So it would be a 90 to 100, like this. Trying to think here, what's the best way? Since I have to submit the full grade, yeah, I guess we'll do it like that.
If it helps professors, some of our professors do it from 91 until 100, then from 81 until 90, and like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. 91, so yeah, okay, let's do that like that. So 81, 71, 61. So, but yeah, I think I got it also a little wrong here, because it technically should be 50 and above, right? Gives you 5. But well, let's see how it works out. 51, 41, 31, 21, 11, and then 0, basically, right? So 0 to 10, that would be, so that should basically be 1, right?
Yeah.
11 to 20 to 30. Okay, well, let's do it that way. That's fine. 15, 16. Yeah, you're right, because, we don't want you to fail the course just because the way it's structured. 90. Okay. It seems fair enough. So you basically have to get 40 to pass the course. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly about that. Between 41 and 50, it's up to you. It's just the rest of them are like that, yeah.
Okay, let me think for a second. So that seems reasonable. 51 to 16. So most of you will be then, according to the current state, what is the usual average in your courses? Like what most students get?
7 to 8.
7 to 8. So in our case, it will be, most of you will be getting 8 according to the current system. So because most of you will be around 70, Okay, I think that's fine. Yeah, let's keep it like this. So what I'll do is I'll save it now. And so the link that you have for the syllabus basically will be exactly the same, just with the new scheme here. Why is it read only? Why would it not allow me? Oh, because I have it open. So let me just close the PDF. And so this way, yeah, I suppose that's fine. That seems to be fair. And I'm glad you brought that up, because again, somehow I didn't know that you have to get 5 or above to pass the course. So I think we don't want you to fail just because you got 70. 70 is a good enough grade. So, okay, let's do it that way. Okay, so we got that. Anything else that we need to discuss? Any other questions? Karina, Solin, Ida here, or people watching passively, if you want to type it in the Q&A. Okay, well then, yes, good luck. So you have one more chapter to complete this week, and then next Thursday, so you have about 10 days or so to prepare for the exam. And then next Thursday, sometime probably around morning, you will get your link to the test. And yeah, and then you'll have 4 days to complete the test. And meanwhile, communicate with your culture teams and basically proceed as it's going so far. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Stay safe, and hopefully the whole mess caused by the coronavirus will be over soon. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Bye.